So today I'm going to do a short presentation on dramatic tension in video games. So what is dramatic tension? Dramatic tension is a storytelling technique that creates a sense of anticipation, excitement, or suspension in an audience. It is the feeling of being on the edge of one's seat, eagerly awaiting the outcome of a conflict, a revelation, or a high-stakes moment. Dramatic tension keeps the audience engaged and emotionally invested in the narrative, as they anxiously anticipate how events will unfold. Dramatic tension is often achieved by creating a gap in information between what the audience knows and what the characters in the story know. The gap can manifest in various ways, such as withholding information from characters, introducing conflicts or obstacles, or presenting a ticking clock scenario where time is running out. By keeping the audience in the know or ahead of the characters, dramatic tension is heightened as the audience becomes emotionally invested in the character's journey and desires resolution. So let's look at the bomb under the table scenario. It's a famous example that Hitchcock himself used to explain the concept. The scenario involves two people engaged in a conversation while sitting at a table with a bomb underneath it, set to explode in a specific amount of time. Hitchcock's point was that if the audience is aware of the bomb, but the characters are not, the tension rises as we anxiously anticipate when and if the characters will discover the danger that they are in. This disparity of knowledge between the audience and the characters create a sense of suspense and keeps the audience engaged. So what's the difference with video games? In video games, the traditional approach to dramatic tension faces a unique challenge. Unlike in movies, TV shows, or books, where we observe characters from the outside, video games allow us to step into the shoes of those characters. We become active participants, sharing their experiences and knowledge. So how does this affect the way tension is built and sustained? Let's go back to Alfred Hitchcock's famous bomb under the table scenario. In movies, the tension arises from the audience's awareness of the bomb while the characters remain oblivious. But what if you could control one of those characters? Picture this. You're sitting down and engaged in a conversation with an NPC in a video game. Unbeknownst to the NPC, there's a bomb under their chair, set to explode in 5 minutes. If the NPC realizes the danger, they'll leap out of their seat, potentially triggering the explosion. Your objective? Defuse the bomb without alerting the NPC. Suddenly the dynamic shifts. The tension arises not from a mere disparity of knowledge, but from the delicate balance between defusing the bomb and maintaining the appearance of a normal conversation. The stakes are high, the clock is ticking, and the player must navigate this precarious situation. This scenario highlights the unique challenge video games face in creating dramatic tension. How can the tension be sustained when the player and the character they control share the same knowledge? Let's compare two stories and see how they use each medium to their advantage to best use dramatic tension to get the audience or player invested in the story. So we're going to compare Romeo and Juliet and Halo Combat Evolved. Okay, so throughout the play, Shakespeare foreshadows the tragic fate of the titular characters, creating a sense of inevitability. The audience is aware that Romeo and Juliet's love is destined for a tragic end, which builds anticipation and heightens the tension as the story progresses. In the final act, Romeo, believing Juliet to be dead, visits the Capulet tomb. The tension is heightened by the possibility of Romeo being discovered by Juliet's relatives or the authorities, as his presence could ignite further conflict between the feuding families. The constant threat of imminent danger adds to the emotional intensity of the scene. As Romeo encounters Juliet's lifeless body in the tomb, the audience experiences a surge of emotional tension. Juliet's apparent death and Romeo's despair create a poignant moment of sorrow and grief. The audience hopes against hope that there might be a way to avert tragedy despite the mounting obstacles. In a moment of desperation and passion, Romeo decides to take his own life, consuming poison. The audience is filled with a mix of dread and hope, aware that Romeo's actions will have profound consequences. The decision to end his own life heightens the tension as the audience grapples with the impending tragedy. Just as Romeo takes his final breath, Juliet awakens from her drug-induced sleep. The dramatic irony of this moment, the audience knowing Juliet is alive while Romeo has already died, creates a powerful surge of tension and despair. The audience is torn between longing for the lovers to be reunited and realizing that their fate is irreparably sealed. Upon discovering Romeo's lifeless body, Juliet, devastated by grief, takes her own life using Romeo's dagger. The culmination of events, with both lovers succumbing to their tragic fate, releases the built-up tension in a devastating climax. The audience experiences a mix of emotions, including sorrow, regret, and the bitter realization that the young lovers' love was ultimately doomed. The ending of Romeo and Juliet is marked by a potent combination of foreshadowing, threat of discovery, emotional turmoil, and tragic resolutions. The dramatic tension that permeates the final scenes engages the audience's emotions and leaves a lasting impact, showcasing the power of Shakespeare's storytelling. The level 343 Guilty Spark starts in a swampy area that leads to the dark and abandoned Forerunner installation called Installation 04. The player's character, the Master Chief, explores the silent and desolate corridors, emphasizing a sense of isolation. The mysterious setting sets the stage for the unknown dangers that lie ahead, creating a feeling of anticipation and unease. This foreboding atmosphere is also created by the enemies known as the Covenant, that throughout the previous missions have been fighting you aggressively. Now they do not seem to care about you and are running around and appear to be frightened. The player is tasked with locating and rescuing Captain Keyes, the commanding officer of the human vessel. However, as the level progresses, the objectives become unclear. The uncertainty surrounding the mission and the presence of unpredictable enemies add to the dramatic tension. The level's atmospheric design plays a crucial role in building tension. The dimly lit environments, haunting sound effects, and eerie music contribute to the sense of foreboding. The ambient noises, including distant footsteps and echoing voices, create an atmosphere of mystery and heighten the tension as the player progresses deeper into the level. Revealing the Flood. 343 Guilty Spark introduces the Flood, a parasitic enemy that is both terrifying and unpredictable. The player encounters flood-infested humans and various forms of flood creatures, each presenting different challenges and behaviors. The unexpected appearance and relentless pursuit of the Flood increase the dramatic tension, as the player never knows when they will face a new threat or be overwhelmed by the enemy. The level limits the player's access to weapons and ammunitions, requiring careful resource management and decision-making. The scarcity of supplies adds an extra layer of tension, as the player must strategically engage enemies and conserve resources to survive the encounters with the Flood. During the level, there are several unexpected plot twists and revelations that heighten the dramatic tension. The player discovers the horrifying truth about the Flood's nature and the sinister purpose of the Halo Ring itself. These revelations create a surge of urgency and raise the stakes, propelling the player forward with a heightened sense of dread and anticipation. Through the isolated setting, uncertain objectives, eerie atmosphere, unpredictable enemies, resource scarcity, and unexpected plot twists, 343 Guilty Spark effectively utilizes dramatic tension to immerse players in a suspenseful and chilling experience. One thing I wanted to add to this section is I got ChatGPT to do an outline for me for this, if that's not obvious at this point. But I noticed as I'm reading this that it said that the 343 Guilty Spark level takes place in Installation 04, which I haven't played the game in a few years, so I'm not sure. I know the level starts in a swamp, and then you go underground into a facility. I don't know if that's Installation 04, or if Installation 04 is the place that when you actually meet 343 Guilty Spark that he transports you to. And I think it's that last one. So if that's the case, then that first bit of information there is wrong. However, I'm going to leave it in because ultimately it doesn't really affect what I'm trying to get across here. All right, so let's go. So now let's break down the comparison. We know that if only Romeo was either more patient, or if this had taken place in the present and he had access to a cell phone, that the whole tragedy could be avoided. But there is no way we can have an effect on the story, so we watch helplessly, hoping that they can piece together the information that we have. In contrast, in 343 Guilty Spark, by using environmental storytelling and teasing us with bits of information, the tension doesn't come from the information we have, but rather the information we begin to understand that we don't have. The information that we have to piece together, and once we have the information, the stress of realizing the pressure that is now placed on us to act upon that information effectively. So ultimately, the difference between video games and movies, books, and plays, other mediums, so both, I guess, former forms of media and video games, both approaches showcase the significance of information and storytelling. In one case, it is the audience possession of information that adds tension, while in the other, it is the player's acquisition of information that intensifies the pressure. These dynamics create a compelling and immersive experience as the audience or player becomes emotionally invested in the story or gameplay, driven by their awareness of information that the characters either lack or have. So that's it. It's just basically about information, what you want the audience to know, because in a video game, what the audience knows can completely shape the way the game is played. Movies, books, plays, they will always be the same, no matter how many times you rewatch it, because ultimately there is no interaction there. You're observing what's happening, and you can be given all the information in the world, and that doesn't impact the story being told at all. But in video games, information absolutely matters. It's what drives the story and drives the dramatic tension in video games. So in that sense, it's pretty much the opposite of the previous mediums. Now, that can be difficult when it comes to replaying video games because, when I go back to play Halo now, I know the flood exists, but I may have to do another video just breaking down Halo in general, because the way the game is laid out, having that knowledge doesn't affect anything. So, or it doesn't affect the previous levels. So, yeah, there's lots to be explored when it comes to dramatic tension in video games, because when you understand the importance of information, you can design your levels accordingly around that. So with that being said, thanks for watching, and please leave a like, a comment, or subscribe. Thanks so much.